Hello everybody, can we just take a moment to appreciate this beautiful cover? The Deathless girls, Kiran, Millwood, Hargrave. Look at that, it's absolutely stunning. Look at the back, all beautiful gold bronzed italic writing. These end papers. Naked hardcover. Naked spine. Gorgeous. Join me for its review. Hello everybody, it's Catherine from Jayne Catherine on Books, and happy Valentine's Day to you all. It's February the 14th and Valentine's Day. I'm wearing my beautiful scarf that my lovely husband has bought me for Valentine's Day. A touch of red on there, so yeah, red lippy to match. Yes, enough about that, let's get to the books, Catherine. Right, The Deathless Girls by Kiran, Millwood, Hargrave, and I've just finished this book. This was my treat purchase, the one purchase that I acquired in January, because as you know I'm trying to get through my backlist this year. And I thought that I'd come with a bit of a review. Now, it does contain some spoilers. It's a very difficult book to be able to review without some spoilers, and the discussion around it, you sort of got to have a more of an in-depth idea what's happening. So if you don't want to listen to any spoilers and you intend to read this without knowing anything, then this video is not for you. I'll just let you know that from the get-go. So for those of you who are still with me, I found this a really difficult book to rate. And I've been thinking about it really for some days, about what I would put in a review and what I think about the book. And the more I think about it, the more I'm confused in a way as to what I want to rate it and what I think of it, because there's a range of emotions that this book has brought up in me, and I've got loads of different thoughts on it. So we'll talk a little bit about the author herself. Now, I read her first book, which was The Girl of Ink and Stars. So that was her debut children's middle grade fiction, won prizes, nice book, I enjoyed it, I gave it 3 stars. And I think in a way I felt that was fair. It was a debut book. I liked the writing. The writing is beautiful. The prose was beautiful. There's no denying that Kiran can write beautifully, and the stories are a nice read to follow. You don't sort of get stuck in the in the wordage of everything, and it's too much. The amount of lyrical prose in there is spot on. But I did feel with that book that there was something missing. It's as if it was a skeleton of a story. It felt a little bit like a skeleton of a plot, and nothing was fully fleshed out. Nice characters in there. There was a good element of magical mysticism in there too, but it just felt like it could have been more substantial. So that was my thoughts on the Girl of Ink and Stars. So now we have the Deathless Girls, and this is for a YA audience. So her first debut was for a children's audience. Deathless Girls is for a YA audience, and she's now bringing out her latest one's going to be for the adult audience. So sort of straight away that sort of begs the question with me is, does Kiran really know what her target audience is going to be? Is she just feeling the water to see which she feels that her style fits with? I don't know. I'm not sure. And I think in some ways it sort of makes you think differently, looking at this book as if it is for, for a YA age group. Now, you can tell that it's been it's been taken up a notch, in as much that I feel that it is more grown up. I think the writing's more grown up. I think you can definitely tell that this is for its target audience. It's not a middle grade book, and therefore I think she's judged that right. So yes, a tick for that. And having known that the Girl of Ink and Stars has got elements of magical in there, magical realism, shall we say, a touch of fantasy, you get the feel from the blurb on this that there'll be elements of that in it. So I just want to read to you what it says on the blurb, because you'll understand what I mean when I go on to say about some issues I have with it. So on the eve of their divining, the day Lil and her twin sister Kizzy are to discover their fate. They've captured and enslaved by the cruel Boyar Valkar. Now Boyar, there's like a little index in the beginning that gives you what some of these medieval terms are, and that is a lord, so the lord of the manor, as it were. Far away from their beloved traveller community and forced to work in the harsh castle kitchens, Lil finds some comfort in the storm-eyed Mira, a fellow slave who she's drawn to in ways she doesn't understand. But too soon she also learns about the dragon, a mysterious and terrifying man of myth who takes girls as girls. They may not have had their divining day, but the girls will discover their fate. Exciting, interesting, drew me in. You can tell that there's going to be a few magical elements in there. We're talking about myths and legends, etc. So you're expecting a bit of that in there. But I don't think I was fully prepared about the turn this book was going to take. So I've looked on Goodreads, and it's got a whole array of thoughts from people. There were some that absolutely loved it, raved about it, were really taken in by the beautiful lyrical writing, which you are. There's no denying it is beautifully written. There are others that say, well, I was bored with it at the beginning and thank goodness for the end. The ending was good. They enjoyed the ending, but they didn't like the getting there. And there were some others that enjoyed it so far and didn't like the end. So there are different opinions, and actually, having read that, just finished this now, I can relate to all those. So from a point of view of being a beautiful book, looks lovely on the bookshelves, the writing's beautifully done, the prose is gorgeous. Kiran can definitely write. I don't know if she's ever done poetry or short stories. I should imagine that they'd be quite stunning if she did those. Some said they didn't feel it had a plot. Now, to give you a bit of a basic plot, and here's where it's a bit spoilerish. We have two girls, Kizzy and Lil, and they come from a traveller community back in medieval times, and they're sort of from a far back Romany tradition of travellers that, generations upon generations have acquired certain psychic skills, shall we say, and it's still well known today that, you know, many Romanies are mediums, clairvoyants, etc. So they come from this community, and all is well, and they're going to have a big celebration. They're about to celebrate what they call the divining, which is where they're given from, like, the head, she's not a witch as such, but the head traveller, the head Romany, is going to actually do a reading for them and tell them what actual gifts, what psychic gifts they have been born with. And this is a big thing in their community. So it starts off with that, and then there's trouble in the camp, and, you know, the baddies come. Oh yes, the baddies turn up. And we've got this army of ruthless men that rape and pillage their way through this beautiful community, killing and slaying animals and anybody that gets in their path. And various members are captured. Mainly the young adults, really, the teenagers. Kizzy and Lil are captured, and they're taken off to this Lord's castle. This, what we're calling him, Boyar Valkar. So we're taken off to his castle to become slaves. And, you know, you really felt this. It wasn't easy to read in places. You know, there was an excellent job done of what was happening in this camp, how people were being captured, people were being they were fearful for their lives, and obviously the devastation of what was happening to their home, as it were, for the twins. And you know, the scene was set beautifully. You then go on to the castle, and we find ourselves there with an array of nasty characters, mainly men. So of course we're looking at issues back in the day when the men ruled. They weren't always respectful of the women, and forced women to do subservient work. They were subservient to the men. They had harsh duties in the kitchens, up all hours, cooking and scrubbing, and obviously being raped. And you really start to get into the story then, and it gave you a glimpse into a really well written historical fiction for a YA audience. I think it set the scene. It wasn't over gory, but it was still disturbing enough for you to get the feels of you know, how terrified these women were and how vilified they felt. But I think, you know, it was targeted really well. And so we get into the steady stream of days in the castle, and there's somebody else in the kitchen who cannot talk, and I'm not going to say too much about it because you'll still perhaps want to read it. She cannot talk, and a lovely friendship develops between Lil and herself. Now Lil is the quieter of the twins, and she's the main narrator of the book, whereas Kizzy is a lot more outgoing, a lot more feisty. She's a bit of a feisty gal, is Kizzy, and she's the most beautiful of the twins. And you know, you can see where we're starting to get into the realms of fairy tales, and you know, Rapunzel being beautiful and locks up, and Snow White being beautiful and carried away, you know, by the baddie. And there's this fear around the castle that, you know, this lord is going to take a shine to her. Well, it becomes apparent that he really is the dog's body of a higher lord, a higher lord somewhere else, a higher master. And it's as if he's recruiting slaves to do all the hard work, but he's also including yes, he is including women. He includes the most beautiful, as he seems to be the most beautiful, and the ones that he thinks the higher lord will appreciate in his court and will appreciate there. And obviously there's this fear that you know, this is where Kizzy's heading. There's a lovely friendship that that's developing between Kizzy and Mirror, female friendship, and there's love growing there into a fully loved female relationship, and that's really lovely done. It's very heartwarming, not over the top. You know, we're remembering here we have got a young audience, young adult audience, and so we merrily go along, and I was riveted with it. I couldn't stop reading it. I was really immersed. And then suddenly, when we get to about 3/4 of the way through, Kizzy's disappeared as we're expecting. Mira and Lil and one of the boys who has got a soft spot for Kizzy decide that they're going to escape and go and rescue her. And then something really bizarre happens, and we end up in a total, fully immersed, mystical, magical, different story, or so it felt, which really I didn't see coming. I'm thinking, well, where the heck's that suddenly come from? It felt too bizarre. It felt as if, well, that doesn't really belong here, because we're setting this scene, here we are, we're getting all the feels of this, and then suddenly, in my view, I thought, God, we've got some ridiculous twist happened here. And this is where I struggle, because I was thinking, right, I went and read the blurb again, and I thought, there's nothing in there that gives you a clue that we're going to get this big fantasy twist, shall we say. So I thought, cracky, I didn't see that coming. Now, was that done purposely? Because I think if that had been hinted at in the blurb, it'd have been very easy to guess what's coming and guess where this was taking a turn. To a certain extent, you're following the plot, you can see the sort of thing that's coming up, where it's going, and perhaps that was done purposely. I don't know what you think about that if we had have known that it was going to be suddenly turned into a full-blown YA fantasy story, would it have spoilt it? I don't know. For me, it was a big shock that I wasn't expecting, and I'm not sure I liked it, to be honest. So it carries on in that vein, and I can't say that I didn't enjoy it. That was as well written as the first section of the book, but for different reasons, and in lots of ways it felt like a book of two halves to me. So I could totally understand and relate to a lot of the comments that people are making on Goodreads, because it felt like a book of two halves. I was thoroughly enjoying it until we got this big twist, and it floored me really, and it stopped the flow. Now, I still thoroughly enjoyed the book, and I enjoyed where it went, and I enjoyed the ending, but it's as if part one, historical fiction with a touch of magical realism, part two, full-blown YA fantasy. Would it be enough for the YA fantasy lovers, and I mean the target age group? I know there's loads and loads of booktubers out there that are into their fantasy and into their YA fantasy, and we shouldn't expect too much. I don't think, it's a YA audience. We don't want really highbrow, overcomplicated worlds and plots, I don't believe. So I'm not sure, because I feel that the first section would please a YA audience that perhaps likes historical fiction, touch of magic in there. If they're not into the fantasy, I think they'd then be disappointed that we suddenly take a U-turn up the fantasy route and the book totally changes its feel, as it were. So this is the problem I have. I'm giving it 4 stars, and I think it's far better than a 3-star read. I certainly think it's targeted at a YA audience. I think that she's got that about right. However, again, there is a plot for me. Some said they didn't think there was a plot, but you can see from the story there's definitely a plot. But this plot goes a bit airy, scary, Mary for me, and doesn't flow and makes this book disjointed. I really did enjoy it. I really did enjoy the writing. I did enjoy the characters. Perhaps, well, no, I think the characters were nicely written. You could definitely see the difference between the 2 twins, totally different personalities. You could feel the sweetness of Kira and her budding relationship with Lil. And you could feel, what's his name? I'm trying to think what his name is, the young lad. Fen. So he was a character that wasn't in all the way through as one of the main characters, but when he did show an appearance, you did get a sense of his character and his love and protection of Kizzy. So yeah, a very difficult one. I'd be really interested to hear what you people think, any of you that have read it, and what your views are on it. I'd be very interested to see where she's going with this adult release when it comes out, where that's going to go. It's strange. Is she testing the water to see how she's building up her fantasy writing? Is she going to stay mainly in, sort of historical fiction with magical realism elements, or are we going to get something completely different? I don't know. I find that unusual for a new author to have 3 completely different genre debuts. I'm not saying it hasn't been done, but that's quite an unusual choice. It'd be interesting to see if I could find something from Kiran as to why she made those choices. That would be quite interesting. So overall, I enjoyed it. And the more I think about it, the more I can't decide whether I disliked it or it was a very cleverly done piece of work. And that's how it leaves you feeling. And, as the more I think about it, the more I think, perhaps it was done in this way for a reason. And I might be missing something. I'm just an old, middle-aged lady reading YA fiction. And I think that, you look at it in a slightly different eye than the target age group. But there's so many of us on here that do read YA fiction as adults, and there's many booktubers out there in the late 20s, early 30s are obviously going to have a completely different viewpoint to these books as I do at my grand old age. So that was quite an exciting one, really. I think she's done a job. She's got me thinking about it. She's got me analysing my own thoughts and feelings about what I want in a book as well. So yeah, so some could say that she's done her job, but yeah, not quite what I was expecting, and I think well deserved of a 4-star read. But it could so easily have gone up to a 5-star if those things that I've discussed were different. But there we go, horses for courses, we've all got different views. So thank you very much for joining me on this lovely Valentine's Day 2020. Hope you've had some lovely surprises from your loved ones. And, you know, I always think it's a day to treat yourself as well. You know, if you're not getting something from you know, your beloved is not showering you with gifts, then yeah, treat yourself to a book. That's what I say. And yeah, something so beautiful as this. So see you again next time. Bye for now.